There's something thrilling about the idea of vampires preying on people in their sleep, draining them of their life essence and leaving them with 2 small puncture marks around their neck. But what if they're not just attacking men? What if there are female vampires out there too? Well, turns out we've been telling stories about them since the 18th century, and some argue that the first ever lesbian vampire was born in Austria. It all started when a countess terrorized the countryside with her strange, nocturnal habits. Born in 1710, Countess Elizabeth Bathory was the daughter of a Hungarian baron. From an early age, she showed no interest in boys, but instead would sneak into her nurse's room at night to rub her body while she slept. As she got older, she married a man named Florens Nadesty, who became a high-ranking government official. Together they had 4 children, 3 girls, and a boy, whom she doted on. For a time, it seemed that Elizabeth had channeled her affection for women into being a devoted mother and caring wife. But by the 1740s, her behavior began to suggest otherwise. In 1740, Elizabeth moved into this castle in the village of where locals soon began to suspect that the countess had taken up blood drinking. Rumors spread that she invited young peasant women to the castle under false pretenses, then locked them in her bedroom at night. Some say that she only let them go after she had drained their blood. Others claimed that she chained them up and tortured them until they bled. The rumors were so widespread that local priests felt compelled to investigate, but they could find no evidence of wrongdoing. Still, Elizabeth's behavior was so suspicious that her husband had her secretly watched. In 1743, he found her drinking blood with 2 young women in her bed, and he confronted her. She swore that it was just water, but he didn't believe her. He also noticed that his wife was losing weight and becoming increasingly pale. In the following months, Elizabeth continued to invite young women to her castle and either killed or mutilated them. When her husband confronted her again, she lashed out, and from that moment on, the couple never slept in the same bed. Florens ended up spending more time away from home, and Elizabeth was left to her own devices. Then in 1746, she finally went too far. After hearing rumors that Elizabeth had poisoned one of the maids, her maid's father broke into the castle and murdered her. Although Elizabeth was innocent of poisoning, she wasn't innocent of anything else. Her cruel treatment of women was well known, and she had even cut off the head of a servant girl who tried to steal a ring from her. So when the maid's father attacked her, Elizabeth fought back. She bit him on the hand, and when he pulled away, she scratched across his face, leaving a long gash between his eyes. She stood over him as he lay dying, gloating that she had marked him for eternity. At least that's how the story goes. Whatever actually happened, Elizabeth was charged with the murder of the maid's father. She might have gotten away with it, too, if it hadn't been for her own family. Elizabeth's brother-in-law, who had been secretly having an affair with the dead man's daughter, convinced the authorities that Elizabeth had used witchcraft to seduce the man and turn him against her. Though in reality, Elizabeth wasn't a witch. She was a lesbian. In the eyes of the law, though, there was no difference. Elizabeth was stripped naked and whipped as punishment. Afterwards, she was locked in a tower in Pressburg Castle, where she spent the rest of her life. While locked up, she suffered from hallucinations and claimed that she was being attacked by wolves. Every night she could hear chains dragging metal moans, and when the guards came to check on her, they found the walls covered in scratches and bite marks. In 1752, she died of a stroke. Before her death, she sent letters begging for forgiveness to her children and friends. She also confessed to killing up to 600 women, although there's no way to know if she was responsible for that many deaths. Rumors of Elizabeth's bizarre behavior persisted for decades, and eventually she became known as the Blood Countess. It's believed that these rumors inspired Sheridan Le Fanu to write the Carmilla, published in 1872, a story about a young woman who is stalked by a mysterious seductress who comes to her in the night and drains her of blood. The story was the first lesbian vampire tale in literature and helped to solidify the image of the female vampire in popular culture. But did Elizabeth really attack people in their sleep and drink their blood? There's no hard evidence that any of the killings were actually committed by Elizabeth. All we have are the stories told by peasants and servants, most of whom had very little education and even less experience with forensics. Still, we can't discount the possibility that Elizabeth was involved in some of the deaths. What we do know is that Elizabeth kept the company of women exclusively. She was known to wear expensive dresses and jewelry, which may have made her a target for thieves. Perhaps some servants were trying to protect themselves. After Elizabeth's death, superstitious locals began digging up her coffin, hoping to find the mark of the beast. But like Dracula's coffin, hers was empty. Then in the 1960s, the floorboards of the tower in which she died were replaced, and with them, The bones of Elizabeth Bathory were lost forever. That means we can never prove or disprove what she did during her lifetime. But even without physical evidence, Elizabeth has secured her place in history as one of the most terrifying creatures of the night. We tend to think of vampires as monsters who prey on the innocent, but Elizabeth's story suggests that they may have also been scapegoated, persecuted individuals who just wanted to be with the people they loved. Unfortunately, this kind of persecution is still happening today. As recently as 2020, at least 7 people were murdered in Tanzania in the belief that they were vampires. So what does this tell us about the relationship between vampires and the LGBTQ community? Well, there are many theories. One is that because blood drinking is seen as taboo, the same must be true of sexual relations between women. Another is that Elizabeth and other real-life vampires were victims of homophobia which led to their wrongful accusations. And yet another is that the accusations were simply the result of misogyny. Since the women who spent time with Elizabeth were often seen as easy targets, both because they were female and because they were poor. Unfortunately, the truth is that we can't know for sure. But what we do know is that the image of the lesbian vampire has had a lasting impact on our culture. From Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles to Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water, queer and trans creators have used the vampire myth to explore themes of identity, desire, and belonging. Of course, that doesn't mean that straight and cisgender creators have also examined these issues through the lens of the vampire myth. But when it comes to depicting the experiences of LGBTQ people, there's something particularly powerful about seeing characters who are both monstrous and marginalized, both feared and misunderstood. The truth is that the world still doesn't always feel safe for LGBTQ people, but stories have the power to change that. They can help us understand and empathize with those who are different from us, and they can remind us that even in the darkest of times, hope and love can endure. So if you're looking for a good book or movie to sink your teeth into this weekend, why not choose one that celebrates the diversity of the LGBTQ community and the richness and complexity of the vampire myth? You might be surprised at what you find. Thank you for watching.